Luke 15, verse 17. The text says, when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. When he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. Just for a little bit, would you think with me from this thought this morning, the purpose of the pit? The purpose of the pit. We all, if we would just be honest about some things. Now this sermon is going to require for us, I know it's first Sunday, I understand that normally us as a people, as black people, first Sundays, we come in most holy. But I would ask that we would just be honest for just the next 30 seconds. I believe that all of us have done some things in life that we are not proud of. I believe that we have all encountered some people, have had some friends, have made some decisions that we look back on and say, why did I do that? I believe that all of us have dated, watch out now, Reverend, one or two people that we look back over life and say, what was I thinking? Again, I know we holy on first Sundays, but I need us to be real this morning. I believe that we have all made decisions that we have looked back and said, you know where was I at that time? The purpose of the pit. When we have made those decisions, when we have decided to go out or we had a real bad breakup and we ended up hooking up with somebody, we woke up the next morning, again, being honest now, saying, how did I get here? All I wanted to do was just go out with my friends, with my ladies or the fellas. But here I find myself as a young man or a man saying, that awkward, I'll call you, or that walk of shame afterwards. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. I said we need to be honest. And we have all had some encounters in life that we wish we could take it back. Can I just burn this? Can I leave this in the air? We have all had to make some decisions in life that we are not proud of. And sometimes when we have to deal with the consequences of our decisions, we aren't too happy with God. Because we find ourselves in certain positions and circumstances that we never thought we would be. The purpose of the pit. I believe that all of us, when we're honest again, that we have found ourselves in some pit situations where we have reached rock bottom, where there was nowhere else to turn. We have reached a place in life that we don't exactly how did I get here? Again, I was just planning on just kicking it. I wasn't planning on, watch out, drinking that much. I wasn't really planning on fooling with them on that level. How did I get here? But I believe that when we look at the pit, and I believe prayerfully after today, we can re-examine, as Reverend Sisto would say, our pit stops. And examine and see that there is some good even in the pit. Everybody knows this story of the prodigal son. We probably heard it preached every homecoming. Somebody has worked from the father, somebody has worked from the son, taking the inheritance, somebody has worked from the older brother. We have all heard this story, but here we are. This young man is in a pigsty. And I believe our text says he came to himself. I believe that when we come to ourselves, which Ferguson would say that he came back into his right mind, because obviously somewhere along the line he lost land, lives it up, runs out of money, famine comes, has to hire himself out, has to do all these things, desires to eat what the pigs are eating. And he is at a place, and all of a sudden a light bulb goes off. The purpose of the pit. Won't be before you long, because I believe that there are three things that pits cause us to do. First of all, pits cause us to reroute or recalculate our plans. Pits cause us, the troubles when we have made a decision and things begin to get a little rough, we begin to think, you know what, wait a minute. This is not how I envisioned it. I bet when that young man left with the inheritance, he did not see himself having to sell himself on the farm. I bet when he left daddy's house, he could not see himself starving in a distant land. All he saw was living it up. I believe that pits cause us to re-examine how did I get here? And not only how did I get here, but if I continue on this same trajectory, where am I going? Some of us in the house need to ask ourselves, where am I going? We are facing some hardships because of some decisions that we have made. We are going through some hell because we allowed them in our lives. And we need to ask ourselves, where am I? It calls us to re-examine, to go back and look at the original board. Look at that billboard one more time. Check out the chalkboard again and say, you know what, I didn't see myself in this place. But now that I'm here, what will I do about it? A lot of times people, some of us, we get to a place when rough times comes, let's just be honest about it, some of us begin to complain. And we say, God does not love me anymore. If God loved me, God would not allow this in my life. If God loved me, God wouldn't have me going through hardships. If God loved me, I wouldn't have to deal with this mess. You have to remember that you made the decision to get in the mess. God has simply stepped back and allowed you to walk in your free will. Now, based on your decision, now God is allowing some other stuff to happen. So now we must ask ourselves, he came, I'm working from this sentence here, he came to himself. We must ask ourselves, what will we do? Do I continue on this journey? Where does it lead? Or do I try to do something different? But not only does the pit cause us to recalculate our plans, but it also causes us to recognize our position. Look at this text with me again. This is the rich man's son. In a distant land, he is a slave. At home, he is the rich man's son. In a distant land, he is a farmhand. I need somebody else to catch it. I said, at home, he is a rich man's son. In a distant land, he is known, watch this, as a slave. Now, just because you decide to go to a distant land does not change who you are. Even in the distant land, you are still the father's son. Can I just talk to 2 or 3 in the house? I said, just because you have some troubles in your life, just because you find yourself going through, just because all hell has broken loose, it does not change your relationship with the Father. You are just in a different place Mr. Father. I said, people may know me as a farmhand over here, but if you come back home, I'm balling and shot calling. People may know me as being in the pig's pit over here, but if you go back home with me, I got a mansion. People may know me as a bum over here, but I'm holding it down when I go back home. What you need to understand is that just because you are in a distant land, it does not change who you are. What some of us, this is what ends up happening. When we go to a distant land, one of those clubs we hit, we drop our ID. Therefore, we have lost our identity in the distant land. I said, just because you are in the distant land, just because they call you a slave, just because you might have to hide yourself out, just because you have to deal with some issues in the distant land, it still does not change. Can we come a little closer home? There are some of us, and just for clarification about this text, this isn't somebody who was walking on the street and comes into faith. This story is about somebody who was in the house, left the house, and had to get some straight. I said that there are some of us in the house that have decided to go another way. The Lord just, I need to go do my own thing. And we can't quite understand why people are looking at us so strange. We can't quite understand why people are looking at us so weird. We can't quite understand why when we pop up at the party, everybody say, you came? That's because there is something in you that God has placed in you to set you apart. The problem that most of us have is that we don't recognize who we are, but people around us recognize. You think it's happenstance that when you show up and ask to hit some, they look at you like, you? Really? You think you showing up to the club and you think that you gonna straighten your leg and drop it and do and twerk and do everything that you do? Come on, let's just keep it real about it. You think people are looking at you for a reason. There is something in you. You need to recognize your position. You need to understand that even in this rough season of my life, I'm still a child of God. Even in this crazy place, I made the decision. I left the house to go do my own thing. I had to get away from mama and daddy for a minute. You have to recognize that you are still daddy's child. But not only is that working, but look at it again. Recognize your position. He lost all that he had. Hires himself out. Desires to feed from what the pigs have. Which lets me know that he has no food in a famine. Some of us need to recognize our position. Famines kill other folks. But here it is, other folks that's just walking in deserts, famines kill them. But when you look at the text again, this young man does not have anything. Not only does he not get 3 square meals, he can't get a half a square meal. But here he is, still working in the field. Can I just talk to somebody just for a minute? The odds were stacked up against you, and you should not be here. But I wish I had just 2 or 3 in this house that we want to say thank you, Lord, and in spite of the odds, I'm still here. The family should have taken me out. The pigs should have taken me out. I should not be here, but are still, you don't have any nutrition, and you are still standing. But not only that, just one more thing out of this, recognizing our position. Again, the text says that he came to himself. And if I can just go on play, if I can just go somewhere for a minute, I believe that what the Father instilled in him before he left is now coming to surface when he goes through. No commentators really talk about this, no theologians really talk about this, but I believe that what his daddy and mama have put in him from the get-go are now coming to surface. He says, how many of my father's servants? And here I am, a son, in this other place. I know there are some parents in the house that are worried about you young people. There are some grandparents that are worried about your grandchildren. About how is it that they can grow up in church, but now they act like they ain't never been saved. They've been drawn to church. They've been beaten in church. Hello, somebody. They've been whooped in church. Have been a part of the children's Christmas plays. But now they act like they ain't got no Jesus in them. Can I just talk to you for a minute? You need to understand that what you have placed in that child, it shall come up in them eventually. They may stray for a while. Come on, how many real folks do we have in here? Some of us have strayed for a while. I was in church and played church. We strayed for a while, but there's a difference between a frisbee and a boomerang. I'm trying to let you know. You are worried about your baby going off. When you give them the word of God, I believe it's Proverbs 22:6. That says, train up a child in the way that they should go, so that when they grow old, they shall not depart. Now, when you throw a frisbee, it can come back to you, depending on how you throw it. But when you throw a boomerang, you need to show that bad boy. It has to come back. All I'm saying to a parent that is confused about a lost child is that they will come back. I said, what Daddy said earlier is now welling up in him. So much so that he can't, I can't stay here anymore. I know who I am. I can't stay here. I remember Daddy said I'm his son. I can't stay here. Some of us need to make up in our mind. I just can't stay here anymore. Some of us honestly are comfortable in confusion. Some of us prefer the drama. But I believe that there are 2 or 3 that have gotten fed up, tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired. I can't stay in this distant land anymore. But not only does it cause us to recalculate our plans, reorder our plans, not only does it cause us to recognize our position, but finally it causes us to redo our posture. Hard times force us to redo our posture. When you go home and read this text, again, we talked about it many a Sunday. Look at this text. When he left, he was pompous, he was arrogant, he was a jerk. Hello, somebody. The young man in our story this morning, he was out there. He had lost his mind, saying, Father, basically, I disown you. But life has a way of happening. When you get outside of the comfort zone, and you're not supposed to be outside the comfort zone, life has a way of humbling you.